All right. All right. Let's see. Ah, y'all can see me. Dignified means not powerful because a planet can be not dignified. Hey, Nicole, and not in its own sign and still be powerful, right? Dignified um, does not mean strong, right? Because a planet can be strong when it's not in its own sign, right? Dignified means having inherent authority. When you have inherent authority, that means it is by birthright. It is something that is not bestowed upon you, but it is something that you inherit, right? So we have this kind of idea when we talk about someone ascending to the throne, right? The authority you have as king or queen is inherited. And so when we see Sun in Leo, Venus in Libra, Moon in Cancer, these are dignified planets. That means they have inherent authority. It's the authority of being in the position, of being in your own house. When you are in your own house, you're the boss, right? When I'm reading clients' charts, and let me pull this back up for you because I want to show you something else. on stage with the microphone. That's like having planets in your first house or your 10th house. This means that people see you and hear you. It don't mean that you the headlining act. It doesn't mean that people even know who you are. It just means that you've got attention for now. But when you're in this chart here and you're this and you on stage with the microphone. So that means when you get on stage, people give you their attention because of your inherent authority, and they give you your attention because you're the loudest in the room. So you have that both happening there. Um, this is an important way, I think, a great way to start off September, because there will be a lot of dignified planets this month. Obviously, Mars is in Capricorn for the entirety of the month. That is going to be happening until November 5th. Venus is in its own sign, again, dignified. So that's the inherent authority, the authority of position, being the owner of your own home inside your house, being the president, being the vice president, whatever it may be, the principal. Right? You have the authority of the position. So Venus in Libra from September 1st all the way through the end of the year, January 1st, 2019. Mercury is going to enter Virgo, again, another planet at home. So this idea of things being dignified, things being in their own sign, planets being at home, is talking to us about something being able to execute its own agenda without having to consider something else. When we talk about Jupiter in Libra, which is very important right now, we're talking about Jupiter being in Venus's sign. So before Jupiter can do what Jupiter does, which is make sense of stuff, understand the intention, interpret what we perceive, experience, see, hear, etc., it has to consider Venus things. So you can say Jupiter has on Venus glasses, Jupiter is in Venus's home. So in order for Venus to make sense of things, it has to do in order for Jupiter to make sense of things, which is what it does, it has to do it in Venus's house, with Venus's tools, with Venus's whatever, on Venus's schedule, whatever Venus is doing, excuse me. Had a little bit of allergies this week. So y'all just gonna have to bear with me. Anyways, this is a great place to start. Look at this. Right here on the right side of the screen, you see our hefty, lovely September calendar, week 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and what is happening this month. And you see it's the 7th, but on the 1st of September, Venus entered Libra, where it will stay until the end of the year. I think that 2018 is like, I don't know, it's kind of special because Venus and Mars retrograde with regularity every 18 months or so, something like that. So that's not really unique that Mars and Venus were both retrograde in the same year, right? They did that in 2016. Venus was retrograde in Pisces at the beginning, then Venus was retrograde, I believe, in Scorpio in 2016. So that's not abnormal. But I think what intensifies and makes this year so different is twofold. First, Venus is retrograding in Libra, where it does every 8 years. So back in 2010 and 2002, at the tail end of the Jupiter in Libra transit. So Jupiter has been in Libra since September of 2017, but before it can leave, Venus has entered the sign, and we'll really pick up where Jupiter has left off. We're going to come back to that in a minute. The other piece is that Mars retrograde in Capricorn. We've already talked about this being unprecedented, right? The last time that Mars was Oh, shoot. I just realized the mic didn't work when I switched to the chart. Dang. Sorry, y'all. See, this is why I come back and check the messages. I'll come back to what I said at the beginning. Okay. So I was talking about Mars retrograde in Capricorn, which is unprecedented because, oh, I can fix that, but I'm not going to do it now. Mars being unprecedented, being retrograde in Capricorn, because 1971 was the last time that Mars was retrograde in Capricorn. Many of us were not alive, so we have not had the experience of Mars retrograding in our Capricorn houses, having this extended transit. That alone would be enough because it's so rare, twice a century or something like that, right? But in addition to that, we're also having eclipses in Capricorn. That's really extraordinary for all of these things to line up to be happening at the same time. You guys are so sweet. Thank you. So it's really, let me close all this stuff off. It's really extraordinary for all of this to be happening at the same time. And it's kind of like, I know you want to get control of your Capricorn house, and I know you want to do it now, but let me just explain to you that what you're trying to get control of is a long-term thing. This is what Capricorn is saying about your Capricorn house. It goes back to November 2016, and guess what? Just because Mars is going to leave Capricorn in November means nothing, because guess what? A year from that time, in January of 2020, Saturn will enter Capricorn. And then before Saturn leaves Capricorn, Jupiter's going to enter Capricorn, and they're going to have their every 20-year great conjunction in Capricorn. So what is happening now in your life, what has been happening in 2018, what really has been the theme of this summer that is not over, is a long-term story that takes us all the way to 2021. That's a lot, right? That is, thank you, Jane. That is a lot. So this week, it's not this week. It was last week. I lied because it says week 1 right there. Week 1, Venus entered Libra, where it will stay. I am going to hold off on doing a lot of talking about that because I want to direct you to some other videos. And maybe I'll be smart and figure out how to put a suggestion in this video so that those of you who are watching the rebroadcast on my channel will be able to see the link right there. Maybe I'll put it in the comments. I got to figure out how to do YouTube because, yeah. But I did a long video on Venus and Libra. It's retrograde, and I talked about horoscopes for each sign. But the major thing that you need to know about Venus and Libra that I'll talk about just in this moment is that your Libra house has been occupied since September 11th, 2017, and Venus is just continuing and escalating and elevating. So Jupiter has been house sitting for Venus. Jupiter has been visiting, taking care of the plants, feeding the dog, living, eating, drinking in Venus's house for the past year. That's not Jupiter's home. Jupiter is, lives in Sagittarius and Pisces. But Jupiter has been taking up shop. That is justice for and by women, Me Too times up, justice, fairness, and equality, women running for office and winning, first governors, first women representative, first trans women governor candidates, upsetting major primaries across the country, but it's women, right? This is no accident. So now Venus is at home. Venus says, thank you, Jupiter, for holding down the fort while I was gone. Thank you for watering the plants. Thank you for doing all of these lovely things that you've been doing, making sure that we have litigation appropriate to or having been initiated so that I can come down and lay down the law here, right? Jupiter has been really talking to us about what does it mean for us to have to litigate justice? What does it mean for the laws to reflect or not reflect the consensus that we have come to? The consensus that we have come to collectively over the past year is that women's bodies are their own bodies. Women are smart. Women are capable. They are not inferior to men. Sometimes they are superior to men. And women should be in leadership positions. Women should be in politics. Women are the majority of our population, and so our representatives, our political organizations, structures should be occupied by women. And I'm going to tell you something that I was thinking about the other day. It's a time and season for all things, right? And Hillary Clinton is like a sacrificial lamb for us. And it's just unfortunate that it's had to be that way. In that part of what has allowed us the clarity, part of what gave us the lens to interpret things through is the fact that Hillary Clinton was literally the most qualified candidate to ever run for office. And she lost to the most unqualified candidate who has ever run for office because of racism, because, well, not, well, yeah, voting rights, but because of misogyny, right? And that really woke us up to the fact that, man, people really hate women, right? And so on the tail end of that, here we are with all of these unprecedented firsts for women. And I said this in the Venus and Libra video, and I'll say it again here, that women are going to win. The races will be tight. They will be. It's just what it is. It's in places where it is extraordinary for a woman to win just because maybe it's in the South or it's whatever maybe. But women are going to win. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I'm moving on. We're in week 2 already. Mercury is already in Leo. Saturn stationed direct yesterday. Oh, I gotta talk about that. Venus is square Mars tomorrow, the 8th. Do I want to say anything about Mercury in Leo? Yes, I do. I want to say that when we talk about eclipse season, meaning a time period where the eclipses are so-called in effect, where we feel their vibes, where they're doing stuff in our lives. I don't believe that there's really a consensus about when that ends and begins. But this is my theory. This is what I have to say about it. And I'm curious to think about or hear about what your experiences have been. As long as the signs where the nodes, the North and South node, are occupied, so that means Cancer and Capricorn in this case, as long as those signs are occupied, we are still in eclipse season, because planets transiting through those signs are revisiting the degrees where eclipses have occurred and will occur. For example, right now today, Mars is at, I believe, 6 degrees. I could be wrong, but let me just check that. And I'm not going to do stuff on my computer because I don't want to mess with my sound here. Oh wow, Mars is at 5 degrees. Right. Mars is at 5 degrees. So that's fascinating because November of 2016, Mars is right where it was the day that Donald Trump got elected. So 5-6 degrees Capricorn. But then there's an eclipse in January 2019 at 5-6 degrees Capricorn, right? So having the sign occupied, for me, is enough for eclipse related things to still be happening, still be in the forefront of our mind. And Mars won't leave Capricorn to November, so there's that. However, Mercury entering Leo is the last planet to leave Cancer. So I do believe that we should applaud for that. And I do believe that that's a great thing, to get some pressure off of our Cancer house. Of course, the last couple of days, the moon has been in Cancer, triggering stuff, and it's a whole nother conversation for another day. So yes, Mercury's the last planet to leave Cancer. Kind of partially closes the door on eclipse season, but I really don't believe eclipse season will be over until Mars leaves Capricorn on November 5th, the day before the U.S. midterm elections. Hallelujah. And then honestly, then we only have like 10 weeks or something like that before planets are back in Cancer and Capricorn and eclipses are back. So all of that to say, I know you guys are always looking like, when are we gonna get a break? When is it gonna be over? When is it, right? I'm with you. However, we don't really get a break, to be honest. So with that being said, you have to learn how to cope. You have to have tools in your toolbox. We talk a lot about self-care, right? Disconnecting, unplugging, having a safe space. All of those things are really necessary when you have unrelenting energy when just the world is a stressful place and your personal life is a reflection of that. So it's important that when I tell you these things like, look, boo, we really don't get a break from all of this stuff. I'm not telling you that so that you can worry or be stressed. You don't need me to tell you that. Like, that's the thing. Like, you are living your life. You know what's going on. You are waking up and sleeping in your body, hopefully. Um, you are you are present to the realities of your life circumstances, and you're clear on what's been going on in your Capricorn house. So for me to tell you that it's going to last a long time is kind of like, all right, with this knowledge, I am armed with the ability to think long term. And instead of waiting for things to die down, how can I work with the energy? That's the whole point of what I do, divination for liberation. When my will is in alignment with the time and the season, which is the divine will, then I am empowered. If I know that Mars is about to blow up my personal second house for another few months, then me getting stressed out about what's happening today is like, am I going to maintain the same energy for another 2 months? Like, is that really in my best interest? Like, get a piece of paper and write it down. That's all I have to say. I didn't even really say nothing about Mercury Leo, but you get my point. I'm going to leave that. I'm looking at my notes. All right. What else is happening? Saturn stationary direct. And I just realized the way I have these weeks separated is so inconsistent. Please don't judge me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Saturn stationary direct. Okay, if you, after you watch this video or when you have time, I need you to go to my videos page and watch the video that I did last night while I was cooking my son dinner so that you can see why this Saturn and Sagittarius is such a big deal. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version here. 1, there are 5 eclipses in 2019. 3 of them are in Sagittarius. So anytime anything is happening in Sagittarius, we know that this is giving us major, 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 major big deal what is happening in 2019. So we can go back to January this year where planets were taking turns still, conjoining Saturn and Sagittarius. I believe that it would have been Mercury that was conjoining Saturn and Sagittarius 3 times between the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018. So that where Saturn is right now having gestation direct is right where that last Mercury Saturn conjunction was. I'm going to pull that back up because I find it to be highly relevant to now. What I was talking about during that time was this sense of saying what you mean and meaning what you say, honoring your word is your bond. I'm going to find those tweets and some posts that I did and repost them because they're going to come back. They're present now and for 2019. Number 2, as far as the 3 eclipses in 2019 and how that relates to now, what I talked about in that video was a dream that I had, but I'm not going to tell you that here because it'll be a waste of time. Go watch the video later. Maybe again, I'll figure out how to put the little thing in the corner so you know where to go. But as far as the eclipse, over the past week, we have seen an increase in conversations about what the church is doing, the role that the church has played in our personal lives, the role that the church has played in determining what we believe is possible. That's what doctrine is. Doctrine is, this is the narrative, the story that I want you to measure everything you see and experience against. Right? This is the lens through which I want you to interpret, or that you shall interpret your experiences through. The example that I gave in the video is that for those of us who were raised Christian, whether in America or anywhere else, we talked a lot about, you know, if something good happened, then this is the blessings of God. Somebody prayed for you. God answers prayers. But if something bad for you, ooh, the devil, I rebuke you. Right? This very elementary, simplistic, binary way of interpreting our life experiences. Good things are because God made them happen. Bad things are because the devil made them happen. Right? And I'm not judging that. That works for some people and it allows them to feel like great about life. Right? But over the past week, we've really been talking less about the doctrine part of church, right? Because Jupiter is not in Sagittarius yet, right? When Jupiter comes to Sagittarius, then we will be talking about doctrine. Then we will be talking about the spiritual and the metaphysical. Then we will be talking about truth for the sake of truth, right? But not yet. Saturn in Sagittarius stationary direct is answering to Jupiter in Libra. So the conversations that we're having about church are about justice, are about politics. What are the political implications of this thing? What role does justice play in this thing? Whether we're talking about the report that came out about the hundreds of children who were abused at the hands of the church and the cover up that was involved and how it went all the way up to the top levels of the Vatican, whether it's about that article that came out that was years of research in the making about the nuns who were murdering children at an orphanage in Vermont and all over the world, and how the church enabled these things, or whether we were talking about Bishop Ellis, who made Ariana Grande feel uncomfortable on the pulpit, and the dialogue that we had about that, or whether it was Jasper Williams, the guy who eulogized both Aretha Franklin's father and Aretha Franklin, and how he went to disparage women, black women, single mothers at the funeral of a black woman and single mother. Right? The political implications of religion and what we believe, and who has a spiritual authority in our life. And is even that spiritual authority subjected to justice, right? Saturn's answering to Jupiter in Libra. So this is what we're talking about. But that's going to change. Jupiter is not going to be in Libra in October and through much of 2019. So right now with Saturn stationary direct, we're asking these questions of ourselves. We crave community. We crave communal, spiritually significant experiences. We crave the connection, something too larger than just our own individual emotional experience. All of this is Jupiter. All of this is Sagittarius and a little bit of Pisces sprinkled in. But as long as Jupiter is in Libra, and you saw it, everyone was so nostalgic watching this funeral together. And the Twitter conversations and everything, and the music and all of that stuff. But we could not allow our convictions and the emotional familiarity of experiencing this ritual together to override our good judgment. That's Libra. Libra is use your brain, rational, make sense. Does this really align with what we've agreed to, our laws, justice, fairness, equality? We're in the time of justice, fairness, and equality for and by women. So you don't get to do what you did, sirs, right? This is where we are. So I will spend some time talking about Sagittarius in 2019 at another time, but that's all you need to know for now. Again, Libra will be occupied. Jupiter will move on to Scorpio October 10th, which I can plug my video. No, I didn't do a video. I did a blog post on thepeoplesoracle.com on Jupiter and Libra and all of the keywords that we'll be focusing on: dissent, civil disobedience, all of those things are Jupiter and Scorpio stuff, October 10th. Next, Venus square Mars. So something that happened yesterday, the moon was in Cancer. So let me give this first. I talk a lot about on here about how aspects are most powerful when they're applying. Once the aspect has perfected, it's over, right? So what we're looking for is, when is the aspect applying, and when do faster moving planets trigger that aspect? For example, if we were to be coming up on a Mars-Jupiter opposition, we would want to pay attention to Mercury, Venus, the moon, or the sun triggering that opposition before it perfected, either by conjoining Mars and then translating the light, carrying the light of Mars to where Jupiter and Mars will eventually oppose, perfected, or by degree, right? So what happened yesterday, September 6th, was that the moon was in Cancer while this Venus in Libra square Mars in Capricorn was applying. So Venus from Cancer squared, I'm sorry, the moon from Cancer squared Venus, right? And then it translated that light to Mars. So it says, I know y'all have not did what y'all haven't met up yet, but I'm here to forewarn, forearm, forbear, trigger that aspect. So a whole bunch of stuff happened yesterday with two senators breaking the rules to release documents related to Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. And that was a big deal. And yeah, so Venus square Mars, I upped a tweet about this on my thread on Twitter, where I do the weekly forecast tweet by tweet. And I'm just checking this chat every now and then if I pause. But anyways, so I talked about Libra square Capricorn because that's really like a major background hum of 2018. It started at the beginning of 2018, and here we are in September, right? At the beginning of 2018, in January and February, Venus, Mercury, and the Sun all squared Jupiter from Capricorn, right? Exactly. Which really gave us a preview of now, with Venus in Libra squaring Mars in Capricorn. So the key here is the signs being occupied. Libra as principle, Libra as theory, Libra as rationality and reconciliation, right? Making two things come into agreement. And something that I mentioned on Twitter and in my Venus retrograde video is that when we talk about Venus, we talk about Libra and reconciliation. This is not about romance. This is not an earth sign. This is not a water sign. This is not the biology of our bodies and what we feel, sensuality, pleasure, joy, all of those things. That's not what Libra is. And I know that confuses people because that's what you think Venus is. But that's not what's happening here. Libra is the legal side, the contractual side of love. Are we moving forward together or not? Do we agree or not? And sometimes the agreement that you come to is that we are not going to move forward together, right? We're going to part. So when you ask me, what does Venus and Libra, what does Venus square Mars have to do with my love life? Do you agree that you even want to be together? Right? It's really that simple. We think a lot about how somebody makes me feel, or does he like me? Our charts vibe in this way. But literally, has this person come into agreement with you that you are going to be together, that you want to proceed together? And then what are the terms of that agreement? Are they explicit, right? This is what Venus and Libra is about. So when we add the Mars and Capricorn, we can have the ideals, the agreement, the theory about how something is going to work. But Mars and Capricorn, it's like, that is so great. I'm glad that you guys had that conversation. This is the nitty gritty, day to day, what we actually have to deal with. I know that when we got together, we either explicitly or implicitly agreed that these would be the roles of the partnership, romantic relationship, business partnership, collective, whatever. But now that we're in the thick of what's happening, it's come to my attention that the agreement that we established, Venus and Libra, stretches me beyond the limitations of what I have available. I cannot play this role. I cannot undertake this task. I cannot do this thing with you. Right? And I'm thinking of so many clients right now where this is happening in their jobs, this is happening in their marriages, this is happening with partnerships that they have in business, where it is very clear that the terms that have been agreed to no longer apply to what's happening in the nitty gritty, right? And so Capricorn, where Mars has been, has asking us, how do we make do with what we have? right? How are we being resourceful? How are we honoring our limitations, right? And limitations against principle. That's Venus square Mars. So where's that happening in your life? Again, even though this aspect perfects today, or I'm sorry, September 8th, uh, that's really been an ongoing conversation of 2018. And Venus will be in Libra for the rest of the year, and Mars will be in Capricorn until November. So, yeah, there's that. Um, Somebody asked me if Venus in Libra is rational. And I don't want you to think of rational as devoid of emotion. I want you to think of rational as being able to consider something separate from, not even separate from, being able to consider or think about something in relationship to another thing outside of yourself. Now, we can never really get free from bias. That's impossible. The Venus, the Taurus side of Venus is about aesthetic consensus, right? So this is about assimilation and conforming. It means that I am having this experience or reaction to what's happening because that's what my body is telling me. However, this is the way that we have collectively agreed that I should respond in this particular place. Example, have some couth. If you have to pass gas, you go to the bathroom, right? This is the way that you behave as a woman. This is the way you behave as a man. This is the way that you dress as a police officer. This is the way that you dress as a doctor. If I come in the room and I have on a white coat with some glasses, a clipboard, and a pen, excuse me, then I am a doctor or a dentist, right? This is what my visual appearance communicates to you about who I am. So that people who may have, say, Venus in Scorpio, or Venus in Aries, these Mars ruled signs, then there's this sense that I don't have to conform to your expectations, culture's expectations of who and what I am and how I look and how I relate and how I love. All right. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Where are we? New moon in Leo. So I can answer this question now. Someone asked. Let's see. Does Mercury in Leo mean that male authority figures' voices will be involved with transmitting information to the masses? I think that one of the things that's really interesting and important is the point that you brought up. It's great. But also within the context of the United States having a president who is Leo rising with Mars there. So there is precedent or for using the chart of the president as a stand-in for the chart of a country and watching transits to that chart as being indicative of what is happening in the country. So when I did my thread on Donald Trump's solar return, he's in a Leo year, first house Leo year. And I mentioned that when planets start moving through Leo, that would be really important. Well, there's been a lot going on, right? So Mercury in Leo, he has refused to answer questions in writing, even though he said that he would. I think that's a little bit confusing, though. I'm gonna have to reread that story. Anyways, but yes, Mercury answering to the sun, Mercury answering to significant and powerful men, communication, commerce, correspondence, writing, commuting, buying, selling, teaching, writing, emailing, calling, all of these things under the command of the sun. So, yeah. Jack asked, is Libran Venus more of the Justice card, where Taurian Venus is more of the Empress? I would say Libran Venus, yes to Justice. Taurian Venus, more of Empress. I'll have to think about that because I honestly think of the Empress as like, I don't know, I would say like Moon in Taurus actually rather than Venus in Taurus. Um, because Venus in Taurus for me is really purely aesthetic, right? It's the way that things look. So Moon in Moon in Taurus for me exalted would be more indicative of the Empress card, just because Moon in Taurus is exalted, so it's about the physical rather than the appearance. The whole point of Taurus is that um, how I look and how things appear are symbols or stand-ins for something I'm trying to communicate about my status, about my gender identity, about how I think about myself, about how I want you to see me, which is different than who I actually am. Um, so Moon in Taurus, though, is the physical body being subservient to aesthetics. So all of the primal aspects, thank you, Jane, all of the primal aspects of the body, Moon, eating, drinking, sleeping, now are subservient to Venus, that aesthetic experience. So now I'm eating not just for survival, Moon in Cancer, I'm eating to enjoy and experience pleasure and abundance, Moon in Taurus, right? Does that make sense? Hope so. Where are we? Let's go to week 4. Sun in Virgo, Mercury in Virgo, Mercury conjunct Sun, right? So remember I started off, and excuse me because you guys told me you couldn't hear me when I switched to the chart, which I know exactly why that is, but I'm not even going to go into it right now. Just drink some water. My tech savviness only knows so much. Right. So I was trying to explain to you about dignified planets. And so now I can revisit that topic. I'm laughing at you, Jack. So I want to revisit the subject. So in a nutshell, I'm going to try to do this like quickly. So let's see what happens. I'm long-winded and I have a lot of words, and I just like to be thorough. I want you to really understand. I'm a teacher at heart. You know what I'm saying? And since y'all can't really talk back to me, I got to be extra, extra, extra. Hello, Mercury and Capricorn. And Jupiter and Sagittarius. Hi, that's me. Yeah, so dignified planets. Let's have a very quick 5-minute lesson about dignities, specifically domicile, right? Domicile means home. Where do I live? Mercury lives in Virgo. Mercury lives in Gemini. Venus lives in Taurus and Libra, right? We just discussed this. When someone is in their own home, they have authority. They know where the knives are and they know where the wine is. They know where the good food is and the good sheets are. They know where everything is. They also get to determine the menu, but they also have to pay the bills, right? So there is responsibility and obligation, but also the benefits of having control over this area of life. Now, that is dignity by sign. There is another kind of dignity, which I was showing in the chart at the beginning, where Jupiter was in the first house. This is an accidental kind of dignity. The first is inherent. This is my house, so I'm the boss. There really is no other conversation about it. I have the benefits of having this thing, but I also have the responsibility of taking care of the thing, so that when people come into my home, say Jupiter comes into Libra, because I'm Venus in Libra, then I am responsible for Jupiter. Jupiter has to answer to me. Jupiter has to follow my rules and use the tools that I have in my house to do its job. Now, when Jupiter is in the first house, even though it's in its own domicile, or Jupiter's in the 10th house, Jupiter has accidental dignity. So this is an accidental authority, meaning Jupiter is not the headliner. This is not Jupiter's concert. Jupiter is the MC. Jupiter is on stage with the microphone. So Jupiter does not have the authority. No one paid to come see Jupiter. No one cares who Jupiter is, but Jupiter gets some attention and people might learn about who Jupiter is because Jupiter is now on the stage with the microphone. This is a great way for you to think of planets in your chart. If you have planets that are not in its own sign and they are in the first house or the 10th house, those planets have the microphone and they are on stage. Let's say you are Donald Trump and you are Leo rising and you have Mars in Leo conjunct the ascendant. Mars is not at home in Leo. Mars is at home in Scorpio or Aries. But with Mars conjunct the ascendant, Mars is on stage with the microphone. And now everybody knows who Mars is because Mars is the loudest voice in the room and it is in the most visible position. No one really cares what Mars has to say because Mars is not in its own sign and it has no authority over whatever, right? Unless, of course, there are planets in Scorpio or Aries, which is that's a whole other conversation, right? But now that Mars is on stage with the microphone, it is the loudest voice or one of the loudest voices in Donald Trump's chart. What is Mars in a daytime chart? Very hot and fiery, very spicy, combative, conflicted, liking to fight, liking to cut, separate, and sever, liking to or being driven to act in its own best interest, not considering other people, right? Because Mars is our will and autonomy, our freedom to act and do what we want to do because we literally can. So that the more authority that you may have or power or strength you may have, for Mars and Leo, the more disruptive it can be because there's nothing to stop it and check it. Hello, Donald Trump. Do you see how that works? First or 10th houses are always dignity, always accidental dignity in the first and 10th house. Yes. All right. So now at week 4, we have Mercury coming into Virgo, which is Mercury in its own sign. So again, a planet in its own sign does what it does as a means to its own end, rather than a planet being someone else's sign having to use the tools and means of this other place in order to get it done. So Mercury is in Leo now. Mercury is under the command of the sun. So Mercury things aren't as important as sun stuff, especially because the sun is in its own sign. So who is the sun in your life? What does the sun represent? Your self-concept, your father, significant men, leaders, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Now when Mercury moves into Virgo, Virgo is a really fascinating sign because Virgo is all about evidence and data. Anytime we're talking about Mercury ruled signs, we're talking about taking things at face value. This is in contrast to talking about Jupiter ruled signs because Jupiter ruled signs want to know what is implied so we know how to interpret it. Mercury says this is a pen. It is black. It is 5 inches long. It has a silver button that functions, Virgo word, to allow me to press the pen out without having to remove a cap. There is a mechanism of a spring inside this pen. That is Virgo, right? I have assessed, calculated, understood the function. I know what I need to use this for, and I put it over there. So now imagine if you have Moon in Virgo, right? This is how you treat my body. This finger is for moving. This arm is for lifting. I would like to be able to lift more. So let me write the calculation. If I do 5 reps at 20 pounds 3 times a week for 3 times blah, blah, then I can do this and this is me, and I'm going to gain. So I have to eat 50 calories to get right. This is Virgo. Okay. But you put that in contrast to Sagittarius because eventually when we get to the end of the month, Mercury and the sun in Virgo are going to square Sagittarius. Sagittarius says, and this is me. Wow. This pen right here, man, I really like ink pens, you know. I bought this ink pen because I had heard a lot of people talking about this pen. And they said that the ink dries really quickly and all of this stuff. And I was like, wow, that's great because I've always loved pens. So I know I'm going to love this pen. Now this is me talking about this pen. I never used it, never really held it in my hand, didn't really know. I don't care about the spring and all of this stuff. I'm talking about the story behind what it means to me. And how I interpret the pen. I'm interpreting this pen as something that I may value because I like gel pens, and it's a 5 millimeter, I'm sorry, 0.5 millimeter pen here. Right now that's using some of the Virgo there, but I just love the way it writes, and I've always loved ink pens. And so this is the story that I tell about my pen. Or this glass, you see this glass, right? It is clear, it's got an N on it. This is a kind of narrow opening here, so I can't really fill it up with that much liquid. Should I use this for juice, water, or soda, right? There's Virgo, but Sagittarius says, oh man, you see this N here? These glasses are from, this is a true story. These glasses are from my grandparents' silver anniversary. So if they're silver, I don't know what that is, like 50 years or something like that. They have these glasses. It's worn out because it's old, but yeah, this is a really nice glass here. Yeah, right? So that's Virgo, right? Virgo is about the function and the mechanics, right? So this is really good when you are trying to solve problems of a technical nature. This is great when you need to acquire and assess the tools that would be best used for a specific job. Virgo is not very good for things that have to do with the body, unless, say, you are a pharmacist and then you have to make calculations about what amount or dosage or doctor that you might want to give to a patient based on various factors, right? You have to take all of these things into consideration. So there's your lesson on Virgo and Mercury, right? Let us go to the last week. Week 5, Mercury square Saturn, full moon in Pisces. Okay, so if you go on Twitter at People's Oracle, that's my page, there is a thread of tweets pinned to the top of my profile. In this thread of tweets that I did back in April, I made predictions for the US using a special chart called the Aries Ingress chart. We use that chart to understand what is happening for a country. We set it for the moment the sun ingresses Aries, meaning the sun reaches 0 Aries, which in the sidereal zodiac, the one I use exclusively, happens around April 13th. We cast a chart for that precise moment for the location, which is the capital city of the country for which we would like to make a forecast. So that means I made the chart for April 13th, 2018 in Washington, D.C. at such and such time, right? It was a little bit before sunrise because where is the sun in that chart? No, it was a little bit after sunset because the sun's in the 6th house. Anyways, in that chart, we look at the position of the moon to understand what is happening with the public. Where are things happening? Where is the body of the people? Where are we focused or living or inhabiting? In that Aries ingress chart, the moon was in Pisces conjunct a newly retrograde Mercury in the 5th house. So that when we come to Pisces transits, which will be in March and April of 2019, but also when we have a full moon in Pisces, which is on September 24th, 2018, then we know that topics associated with those that I talked about in that thread will be prominent. What does the moon in the 5th house mean? Children, sports, athletes, entertainment, Hollywood, games, love, sex, pleasure, right? All of those things are 5th house. Now, my question for you is, what have we been talking about regarding children all year? Did you forget that quickly? I bet you did. We have been talking about children who have been held in detention by ICE. Immigration, something enforcement, whatever. Abolish ICE, that's all that matters. Anyways, we've been talking about children who have been held in detention, separated from their parents, some of whom have died, some of whom will now be possibly be held indefinitely. This is news, right? Just came out yesterday that the Trump administration wants to now hold children indefinitely in detention, right? This is just really, really, really bad. But we know that by September 24th, when we get this full moon in Pisces, we will have major information regarding this issue. What else is happening with sports? Well, we still have a few things going on. One, WNBA and women, right? Because what rules Pisces people? Come on. Jupiter rules Pisces. And where is Jupiter, my friends? In Libra. So, of course, we're talking about women athletes, fairness, justice for and by women in Hollywood. Look at that. Fifth house entertainment, athletes, fifth house sports, right? So, there's that. There's also the ongoing protest against police brutality by NFL players. We also recently, Colin Kaepernick has publicized this thing with Nike, but this is a sports brand now engaged deeply in the conversation about justice. And guess where Colin Kaepernick's sun and Mercury is? Just guess. Jupiter. I mean, Libra. So Jupiter in Libra has been going all over his sun and Mercury for the last year. Guess what else is happening? He's in the middle of arbitration and litigation because, you know, the whole NFL thing blacked him out, right? So these are all things that we'll be talking about. And guess what else happens within this month? Football season starts. So again, another reason for this full moon in Pisces. I believe the official season opener for many teams is around that time, right? 24th. So there's that. The other piece that I probably want to wrap this up with is I need to talk to you a little bit more about Venus and Jupiter in Libra. Let me see if y'all got any questions. Thanks, Jack. She answered my question. Ice, NFL, SAG. Yes, y'all got it. Y'all got it. I want to talk to you about Venus. I want to talk to you about Jupiter. I want to talk about Libra. I'm going to talk to you about what's going on right now. So much is going on. But this is the major, well, two major astrological themes of the fourth quarter of this year. Obviously, our Venus in Libra in the retrograde and Jupiter entering Scorpio. Go to my blog, thepeoplesoracle.com, and just read, and we'll have to talk about that another time. I'll talk about it in the October video because that's when it actually happens, but I'm chomping at the bit because, right, it's already going down. I explained to somebody, and I posted screenshots of my text conversation with somebody on Twitter yesterday because somebody had asked me, wait a minute, did Jupiter enter Scorpio? Why are we talking about this? Blah, blah, blah. So last year, the Me Too thing all really kicked off in earnest because Me Too was already a thing. It was already a hashtag. It was already a conversation. You okay, girl? Again, already a thing. Already, right? You okay, sis? Excuse me. Already a thing. However, the season and the time came for us to have a collective conversation about it, which was triggered by a piece that was released about Harvey Weinstein and his long history of abusing women and using his power in a variety of ways to take advantage of women sexually and financially in their careers, right? That really set it off. Mercury conjunct Jupiter in Libra in October last year was like when it all happened. But the people who published that piece didn't start working on that piece when Jupiter entered Libra. They had been working on that piece for a very, very long time, right? But the time came for that thing to, right? So we can say the same thing about Jupiter in Scorpio, that yes, Jupiter enters Scorpio October 10th. Yes, there is a major Mercury retrograde later this year where Mercury is going to conjoin Jupiter 3 times in Scorpio. The first time, which is going to be at 3 degrees Scorpio, where these fixed sign eclipses have been. Woo, mind blown. So we can talk about it now because it's really already in play. Now, of course, once the sun enters Scorpio in November, mid-November, then of course we know that major news stories are going to come out regarding Jupiter in Scorpio. And interestingly, last year in the Aries ingress chart, the moon was in Libra in the 3rd house of the Aries ingress chart. So it was journalists. It was a news story that came out, and journalists were really at the helm of that. But this year, Scorpio is the 10th house. Is it right? No, Scorpio is rising in the Aries ingress chart. So, oh boy, civil disobedience, Yeah, that's that whole thing. I'm supposed to be talking to you about Venus and Jupiter. But, you know, it's okay. They're all connected. Uh, um, Venus is picking up where Jupiter left off. Jupiter has reignited our conversations, involvement, and understanding the necessity of unions, right? We have watched newsrooms all around the country unionize at the same time as conservative corporations buying out newspapers, closing and shuttering others, putting journalists out of jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, uh, Several of my clients are organizing on their jobs, whether in an official capacity by actual unions or either understanding that there is some unfair process occurring at the job and that they would do better to come together to address the concerns rather than having one person deal with it. So again, a union in a informal sense. Uh, Over the next few weeks, while Jupiter is still in Scorpio, no, it's not. Jupiter is still in Libra until October 10th. This is a major time for us to be having some real conversations about what's happening with unions, for people to be taking stands, for things to get real. Um, Libra is the 12th house of the Aries Ingress chart. So this is why we've been talking about immigrants and immigration. 12th house is about people who are not citizens of this country, foreigners, hidden spies, all of these things, blah, 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 all of that stuff. This is why we're talking about children in prisons, because the ruler of the 5th house in the Aries Ingress chart is in the 12th house. Right? It's very literal how this works. This is why we're talking about justice for these children, fairness for these children, because Jupiter is in Libra. So the next month we'll have big conversations about those things. September is just really a transition month. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I said that September really starts like a new year almost. Like up until September is one thing, but it really starts to take off because of Venus and Libra setting the tone for what will happen the last 4 months of the year. Um, yeah, do you guys have any other questions for me? I have a question about aspects. Is Venus square Mars the same as Mars square Venus? Yes and no. That is a really technical question that you're asking me. It's the same in the sense that the two planets are an aspect to each other, and I would put the faster moving planet first. Which in this case, yeah, Venus is still moving faster than Mars. So Venus is the faster moving planet. So Venus would be first. Mars is only going to be the faster moving planet when Venus is retrograde or stationing, um, because Venus moves faster than Mars. The other piece is about the sign placement. So there's two kinds of squares. There's a 90-degree square, and then there is the 70-degree square, 240-degree square, whatever. So there's the opening square of uh, Venus square Mars, where Mars is in the superior position. So that would be Venus and Mars conjoined at some point, and Venus moved on, and that's the opening square. The square that Venus and Mars are in right now is that closing square. So Venus is in the superior position, and there's a lot to be implied about that, but just know that Venus has the upper hand on Mars. So whatever Mars is trying to do, that's great. Mars, you're in somebody else's house. I know you're exalted. That's cute, but you still got to answer to Saturn. Venus is like, I'm at home. I'm the boss. So Venus is in what we would call an overcoming square. Venus in the superior position. And the next aspect that they will make is a conjunction. In that first square where Mars is in the superior position, the next aspect they would make is an opposition. Okay. Someone else asked, how do we interpret planets and signs versus signs on houses? All right. A house is a topic. It is a place where things happen. A place. Your house, inside your relationship, in prison, at work, at the bank, in your bank account, in your pocket. right? At your parents' house, at school, in a foreign country, right? Houses are places things happen. So when a planet is inside of a house, this is a planet doing something in a place. Mars in your second house in a daytime chart is causing conflict over your money in the second house, right? Mars conjunct your moon in a daytime chart is making you move around a lot. It's causing conflict in your family, in your home life. Planets in houses, and this is where I differ from a lot of other astrologers and what for me makes sidereal astrology stand out from other kinds of astrology. Um, so a planet in a sign is pointing you to another planet. Planet and signs are about hierarchy and command order. When Venus is in Virgo, Venus is answering to Mercury. I'm not answering questions about natal charts, sorry. So I love you though. But Venus in Virgo sign is answering to Mercury. So we would ask what kind of authority Mercury has over Venus. What is Mercury doing? When you have a stellium of planets, 3 or more planets in Cancer, they are all answering to the moon. So the sign is a function of directing you to a planet. If you have several planets in Cancer, then who is the boss of those planets? Your mother. Now, in the system I use in whole sign houses, when planets are in the same sign, they are also in the same house. So that house, the topics associated with it are also under the command of said planet. But I meant planets in houses versus signs on cusp house. Oh, signs on houses. Well, I just explained that at the end, right? Um, when you do not have a planet in a house and there's still a sign there, that house is still subjected and subservient to the ruling planet by domicile. So that if you have Taurus in the second, Venus rules that house. If you have Venus in the second, not in Taurus, right? So let's say you're Aries rising and Taurus is in the second house, right? There are no planets here. That means nothing's happening in that house. However, the affairs of that house are still under the command of Venus. Why? Because Taurus is ruled by Venus. Now, let's say you are Gemini rising and you have Venus in the second house and Venus is in Cancer. Venus in Cancer is telling you what is happening inside that house, right? Which one has dominance? All right. Um, a planet in a house is telling you what is happening there, but the planet that rules that house controls the outcome, right? Venus in Cancer is telling you what is happening in the second house. You like to buy nice things. You like clothes. You like money. You like comfort. You like familiarity, right? You like to buy things and you generally have the money to do it, all factors considered, right? But the outcome of that house is still determined by your moon. So your family, home, and upbringing, your mother is going to determine the outcome of matters of the second house. Let's say the moon is in the 10th house, right? So that means that the moon would be in what, Pisces? If you're Gemini rising. So do you work for your mother? Do you work in a women's industry? Do you have women bosses, right? Those people are in control of your money because they determine the state of your employment and they have authority over you in your life. Let's see. Any other questions here? Somebody else asked something. Hold on. Let me scroll back up here. Do you think Venus is at a disadvantage at present because of hurling with, I don't know what WW means, Jack, a ray by degree despite being in the sidereal? You got to ask your question again, Jack, because I don't know what WW, a ray by degree. I don't know what that means. I think I know what he's saying, but let me say this. When a planet is stationing retrograde, or a planet is retrograde, I need you to disconnect from retrograde with negative, bad, ruining my life. The retrograde is in the station, and I explained this in the Venus and Libra video. that when a planet is slowing down, that means that it is moving, um, it is moving uh, slower than its average speed. So everything in astrology is cycles, in these predictable cycles, right? Every 29 days, the moon is going to come back to where it was, right? You have a new moon, then you have a full moon, right? It takes a year for the sun to do this, blah, 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 blah. Venus spends 6 weeks in a sign, 5 weeks in a sign, except for when it's going to station retrograde. So the idea of retrograde is first emphasis, drawing our attention to disrupting, so changing the habitual function and way that the planet moves and acts, right? So that when Venus is disrupted, that means stop, pause, we got to make a U-turn and go back and revisit this consensus. I know this is what we agreed to, but something ain't right. So we have to turn around and revisit, right? Can you see someone's sun sign? I are I think you're asking me, can I guess someone's sun sign? I don't really know. I mean, I know what signs people have in their charts that are prominent in some way, but I can't always say where they are. There's just so many factors to consider. Um, yeah, and when you say see, are you saying like their physical appearance or like can I guess it? I don't really know. Um, Let me go back to Jack's question here. Yeah, so to kind of answer your question, um, Jack, I don't think that I think that Libra is actually in a more influential position, right? I always describe planets that are stationary as planets that are stopping to make a U-turn in the middle of traffic. When somebody stops and makes a U-turn in the middle of traffic, you get a gaper's delay because now the whole flow of traffic is slowed down in relationship to this one car who decided to not go where everybody else is going and stay with the flow of traffic. Um, so Venus right now is going to soon. And that happens at the end of the month. I didn't even say that. That happens at the end of the month. Um, because Venus stations retrograde October 5th. So that whole last week of the month, Venus is within 1 degree of where it stations retrograde. So again, another reason for us to be focused on all this Libra stuff that I just mentioned before we got on this tangent. So for a planet to be making a U-turn literally disrupts the flow of traffic in that part of your life, right? It has the power to say, hey, we ain't going 50 miles per hour anymore. We're going 5. So you have to deal with it. So now when you're going 5 miles per hour, now things aren't a blur. You can see things very clearly. So I really think that Venus is in the most powerful position, right? Venus is an evening star. It's free from the beams of the sun. So that means once the sun sets, Venus appears on the western horizon, visible. Venus is at home in its own sign, and Venus is in the superior position. So Venus has the upper hand in every way. This is another reason why I believe so strongly that women are going to win this fall. Because the day of the election, Mars leaves Capricorn and enters Aquarius immediately in a supportive trine with both Venus and the moon and the sun in Libra. So whatever Venus wants to do, it's got our attention. It's got support from other planets. The sun is working for it. Mercury's working for it. Mars is over in Aquarius. Like, I see you, boo. Let's make this happen. So yeah, how do I interpret natal conjunctions? Two planets in the same sign that are subservient to the same planet. Conjunction means that these two people are occupying the same house. They are working in the same area. So let's say you have Mercury conjunct Mars. So Mercury is your language, how you articulate your perceptions. Mercury is also the general significator for siblings, as is Mars. So Mercury conjunct Mars is going to show bickering with siblings, right? Because these two things are acting on each other. Now, let's say that Mercury and Mars are conjunct in Gemini. Well, Mercury is the boss here. Mars is working for Mercury. But the thing is that very easy to change its nature. It has no nature of its own. It's like Mercury used to be made into mirrors, so Mercury merely reflects. It's very changeable. But the whole point is that the easiest way to understand a conjunction is that these two planets are acting in the same part of your life and they are subservient to the same planet. So in Cancer, to the moon, your mother, home, family, and upbringing, that's what's most important. Um, Venus will win the day, but this week I wonder if she's under strain from Mars based on the degree. Yeah, I mean, hurling with a ray, meaning applying to a superior aspect within 3 degrees. That's one of those things where I do not agree with everything in that Balance says. I do not agree with everything that Firmicus Maternus says. And a lot of people want to beef with me over that, but I just don't agree with everything. For me, the evidence is watching, right? Ayanna Pressley just unseated a 10-term congressperson in a major upset, a black woman in Boston. Now, you tell me who has the upper hand, who is in the superior position, who has the advantage, right? The other thing is that Jupiter is still working for Venus. So it's like Venus has a little army, right? Venus is not doing this by herself. Venus has somebody helping her out so that by the time we get to election day, like I said, moon, sun and moon will be in Libra. I don't remember where Mercury will be that day. Um, yeah. Any other questions y'all have? I don't think I missed anything. I forgot I did miss thing. And I wrote this down at the very end in my little black pen there, right? I don't know if you can see it. Anyways, uh, September 27th, write this down in your calendars. Um, Mars triggers the July 27th eclipse degree. That's 10 degrees of Capricorn. So Mars, for the third time, will trigger that eclipse degree. So regulation, all of those things that I've been talking about, unprecedented. Yeah, end of September is juicy. I think it's very clear. How do you know what planet is ruling your year if you said you're having a Venus year? Annual profections, every house in your chart governs a year of life. The first house governs 0 to 1 and all multiples of 12. So you count your age around the chart. So for example, I'm 34. I am in an 11th house year. And since I am Sagittarius rising, Libra is in my 11th house. So you take the ruler of the sign on the house where you are, and that is your Lord or Lady of the year. So for me this year, Venus is the Lady of the year. Wherever Venus goes, I go. Whatever Venus does, I do. So Venus is about to station retrograde in Libra in my 11th house. See how that works? I think that's it. The details about how to interpret that are a little bit more intense. So you should get my solar return reading because I break it down for you. Because you have to examine the condition of that ruling planet in the natal chart, aspects that it's making, transits to that sign, and the solar return chart. It's deep, ain't it? But you could know so much just by looking at one planet. I love it. So awesome. I think that's all I got for you. Next week, I'm releasing an ebook on the houses. I hope next week. I'm about to get off and work on it. I just have to finish laying it out. Anyways, next week I'm releasing an ebook on the houses. Why do the houses mean what they mean? I gave a webinar on that earlier this year. If you are new to sidereal astrology, I do have a webinar that's 70 minutes with a 25-page PDF that actually has breakdowns of the planet size and signs and houses, how I understand them in the sidereal zodiac, but also guides you through how to understand the difference between your tropical and sidereal chart and how sidereal works. Yes, you can get any a solar return reading, but you want to wait till you get closer to your birthday. So I would say anywhere from a month to 3 weeks before is good, because that's when things really start to get into play. Um, Other than that, that's all I have to say. Dana, I know you hear about this, but you're truly amazing at what you do. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really love it. I could talk about astrology for 50 hours and never get tired. I could fall asleep, dream about it, and wake up still talking about it, because I just really love it so much. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go eat some greens. My daddy made some Cajun style rice and beans. So I'm about to go eat that because I'm hungry. I need some lunch. Follow me on Twitter at People's Oracle. Follow me on Instagram at People's Oracle. If you're in Chicago, come see me this Sunday at Haji Healing Salon. That's HAJI Healing Salon. I'll be offering 30-minute sidereal astrology readings in person for a rate you'll never get, because, you know, this is for the community. We got to do that thing. But yeah, come see me in person. You should book online though, hajihealingsalon.com, and I'll be there to give you your reading. I might have my tarot cards too, so you'll want to check that out. Other than that, if you are new to sidereal astrology, you're trying to figure out what is going on, why does it work, how does it work, you should go to thepeoplesoracle.com and click that little link called shop and download my 70-minute webinar and 25-page PDF on what is sidereal astrology, how does it work, what does it mean, why does my Mercury move from Virgo to Leo, and what does that mean, right? I break all of that down in that webinar. So looking forward to my reading with you on the 13th. Ooh, this is so nosy. Nicole, did you get my message about changing the time? The 13th? I put it on the 13th. I thought it was the 14th. I don't know. I'm gonna email you, Nicole. My energy is similar to Kelly Rowland. I bet y'all got the same ascendant. That would be funny. She cute though, so I'm gonna take that as a compliment. All right, I love y'all. I'll talk to y'all soon. I'm gonna stop screaming now. Thanks.